to your very first episode of Popcorn and Prosecco, a show dedicated to talking about movies, and more movies. Each and every week, we're going to give you a half hour of movie talk covering new releases, past favorites, holiday-themed films, and anything else we can reasonably cover. I'm Perri Nemiroff, and here are my co-hosts, Kristy, Puchko, and Angie. Can you say hi, guys?
Hello.
Hi.
The magic of Google Hangout. So now this week we're covering Valentine's Day movies, Robocop, Vampire Academy, and Winter's Tale, and Angie is going to kick it off for us.
Yes, I am. So you guys might have noticed that there is a holiday this week, Valentine's Day. So I thought that we would talk a little bit about movie recommendations for Valentine's Day, because, you know, that's like a good thing to do that day, especially when it's like 0 degrees and terribly snowy outside. So I will start. My recommendation for something to watch on Valentine's Day is Closer, which is directed by Mike Nichols, and it's not what you would call like a romantic, you know, swoony love will conquer all type film, but that's exactly why I'm recommending it, because let's be real, there are a lot of people who hate Valentine's Day and, you know, who feel kind of bitter and jaded about the whole romance and love and flowers and chocolates thing. And if you're in that kind of mood, this is the perfect fucking movie, because this is a movie about 4 people played by Jude Law, Clive Owen, Natalie Portman, and Julia Roberts, who just basically spend the movie being horrible to each other. Like, they're in relationships, they like, you know, then they are cheating on each other with each other, and it's just, and no one comes out looking good in the end, and it's really, honestly, I think it's really fun. The first time I saw it with this girl who was like a total romantic, and you should have seen her face afterwards. She just looked like somebody just like, you know, like beat up her puppy. She just looked so sad. Anyway, have you guys seen this movie?
Yeah, I actually remember seeing it when it came out and being really blown away, because I feel like it was like when it was Julia Roberts, like one of her first, like, not being the America's sweetheart roles, and like everybody is upsetting in that movie. Like, everybody is just, there's like the one part where Colin, where he yells, "I am a caveman."
You mean Clive
like,
Owen?
Yeah, thank you. I was like, not Colin.
I've never seen it, but you just sold it with that alone.
Yeah, well, because like he wants the details of her infidelity, and she's like, "Why do you want to know?" And he's like, "Because I'm a caveman." And I was like, oh. Like, it's a powerful movie. It is sort of an anti-Valentine's Day choice, I would say.
Yeah, that's exactly why I picked it, because, you know, bitter, cynical people need something to do on Valentine's Day, too. And one of the other things about the movie is, I mean, you just heard me rattle off the cast. It's a really kind of a fucking sexy movie. Like, there's a lot of smolder going on there. So, you know, not only do you get to be, you know, angry at the world, but you also get to get a little charge out of how hot these people are. This is back when Jude Law was like the prettiest human being on the planet, too. So yes, that's my recommendation. What do you have for us, Kristy?
Okay, so mine I think is super fitting, because 1, it's a romance, 2, it's about the Olympics, and 3, lots of snow. So I'm going with The Cutting Edge, which is from, I own on DVD because it's
Why do you own that?
Because I love this movie. So it's basically, if you've never seen it, it's Dirty Dancing on Ice. It's that simple. It is about a hockey player who can't play professional hockey anymore because of an accident that has screwed up his peripheral vision, which makes him a liability. And so he's like, you know, down on his luck. And there's a kind of ice queen, ice figure skater, played by Moira Kelly, who is like terrible with partners, and she's really mean, and so they need to find someone to skate with her. So these two are obviously, and they hate each other at first, and they're total, like, he's all blue collar and she's all prissy, and it's like, it's super 80s feeling, even though it was made in 1992. But there's like sports montage, and there's, you know, there's like sexy, you know, banter and stuff, and eventually working together to become for couples skate in the Olympics, they fall in love, and it ends with a number, an ice skating number that is, I cry still. I have been watching this movie for decades, and I still like weep when I watch like, to the point where like literally my husband is like, again. Like, he doesn't understand. Like, he's like, it's fine. It's a fine movie. So, ringing endorsement as a date movie. No, but I mean, it's actually really funny, and it's really sweet, and in the end, it's just that it's such a fun moment because you get that like Olympic like oh moment where it doesn't even matter if they win because they're together, guys. It's lovely. And bonus fun times, you can watch this movie and then go on the Atlantic Wire. They did a piece about they had a real judge how that would do in today's Olympics.
Oh my God, that's amazing. We have
That's
to get
really
that
funny.
link. We should post it with us.
Yeah.
All right, Kristy, or sorry, not Kristy, Perri.
I actually thought mine was going to be a totally alternative choice, but like you guys kind of just blew this away. I've got the Valentine's Day movie for single people, considering I'm the only single one in this group. 500 Days of Summer, Mark Webb movie. Odds are you have seen it because it's incredible and it did very well. It covers a 500-day span of a relationship between Joseph Gordon-Levitt's Tom and Zooey Deschanel's Summer. And it really hits all the highs and lows of relationships. So if you're going into this holiday single, it could hit you hard in some pretty sad ways, but then it also builds you back up. It just goes to show, like, you could feel so invested in something means so much to you at one point in your life, and then it goes away, and you're super bummed and sad, but then all of a sudden, ooh, there's hope. And even better, there's a dance number. And I was just watching that to prepare for this, because I needed to do my homework, but no, I really wanted to watch the dance number. That is one of the most incredible scenes I think ever. Like,
It's an independent movie, which is crazy.
Like if you watch that, I still can't believe how they orchestrated all of that. Like I'm having fun with it, I swear, but I'm sitting there watching like, how did you cue that guy and still make that work? And what does it take to get a fountain shoot up at the exact moment? But that movie just it makes me happy. I feel bad for him. Like, I pity him probably about, like 75% of the way through that movie. But in the end, it really leaves you in a good place. So Valentine's Day motivation for all the single folks out there.
Yes, the ones that are not so bitter that they're going to watch my pick. They should watch your pick.
I'm glad I finished up so we can wrap up on a high note.
Yeah. All right. So I think pick one of those if you see any of them. Tell us what you thought of them, and we can move on.
All right, so now for our first review segment of the show, we're going to start with last weekend's release, Vampire Academy. So before I jump into the plot of this, I need to say the basics of this world, which probably hints at one of the film's biggest issues. Okay, so it's Moroi, the good vampires, versus the Strigoi, the vampires. And then there's little Dampiers who have to protect the Moroi. Dampiers are half human, half vampire, so they are stronger, and they can protect the weak little Moroi from being eaten by the Strigoi. I wish I had, like, little characters or something. I wish I had thought of that.
But
anyway.
that right there is clearer than the introduction of this movie.
Yeah.
I don't know
why it makes that retroactively makes me angry at how hard of a time the movie has explaining it, because you just laid it out in, like, 30 seconds.
It's really just good vampires versus bad vampires, including this extra race. It's actually very interesting in the book. But anyway, the plot in the movie and in the book is Rose and Lissa. Rose is a Dampier, Lissa is a Moroi, and Rose is training to be Lissa's guardian. And the two of them get pissed off about something. They run away from school, and the movie starts with them being brought back to St. Vladimir's, where they learn, how to be good vampires and guardians and all that nonsense. And when they're back there, they're busy fighting off kind of school bullies and silly little taunting type things. But then Rose also senses a greater threat within the walls of St. Vladimir's, and she feels compelled to protect Lissa from all of that. So, yeah, there's problems here. I'll be the first to admit it, this is not a great film, but I still found it highly entertaining. And again, I must also admit, it might be because I've read the book. I actually thought the movie did a semi-okay job at explaining things that should have been a lot harder to explain, but it's just exposition overload. As someone who already knew this information, every few minutes I'm looking up and I'm like, did they really just explain that in a sentence, like right now? Was that necessary? Because, like, it takes away from any heart and emotion in the movie. But at the same time, I'm also sitting there and I'm like, well, if someone hasn't read the book, they don't understand that. So I kind of get that side of it, too. But really, I mean, it's from it's directed by Mark Waters, who directed Mean Girls, and it's written by his brother, Daniel Waters, who wrote Heathers. So the greatest thing about this was going to be that it was kind of Heathers and Mean Girls meets vampires. Yeah. It didn't exactly turn out to be that, But I do feel hints of those two movies in here, and I think that works well enough for me. And also the pace. I think the pace is kind of like the saving grace here, because if you're not getting a plot point or you're not liking a joke, don't worry, because it's going to be over in 2 seconds and you're going to get something else right after. And part of that also connects to how great I thought the lead was, Zoe Deutsch. Odds are you don't know who she is. She was on Ringer, and then she had like an itty bitty role that had no purpose in Beautiful Creatures.
She's also Leah Thompson's daughter.
Oh yeah, that's it. She told me that. Now I can't remember it, but I did an interview with her at New York Comic Con, and she had a really cool detail about one of her costumes that she still wears, and it made me really happy. Anyway,
include that in the links.
I will. I'm gonna put that in there. But I thought she was great. She just has so much life, and it makes me think back to the Twilight Saga, and I did not like those movies, period, but it just sucked the life out of me even more because of how much I despise Kristen Stewart's personality. Like, I get it. That's her. She does her own thing. But come on. I mean, you can't be in this business and not have more life to you. And, like, Zoe Deutsch, like, in screen and in person is just, like, on. Kind of like Jennifer Lawrence-ish, which I had a lot of fun with. But she's great in this movie. Really great timing. She's just a very likable lead. But then a couple things I want to throw in for fans of the book that I had some pretty big problems with. I was really disappointed with what they did with Miss Karp. I thought that character had a lot of potential, and it's a great relationship there with her and Lissa, because what Miss Karp goes through would have built up Lissa's character and her problem much more so than it actually did in the movie. So that was a pretty big bummer. And I think one of the worst things for me was that character, Headmistress Kurova, which is just, like, laughable. This is probably the prime definition of a one-dimensional role that had no purpose in being in this film. She says nothing interesting, does nothing you wouldn't expect. That sucked. Was not happy with that. And then probably another major disappointment was just the role of Dimitri. You know, it's a YA book. The lead has her love interest. But here, I don't think that's going to register for very many people because they don't do much relationship building between the two. He is so much bigger and so much older than her that no one would probably get right off the bat that that's even supposed to be happening. And
I just thought that the actor was kind of wooden and just, I mean, he's not, like, terrible and the role isn't, like, that fascinating, but it was just, like she is such a, she's such a spark plug. She's so lively. Like, I mean, I agree with you, Perri. I think that she is what makes the movie work to the extent that it does. And so it's disappointing to see her paired with this guy, this, like, lunkhead who's just kind of there.
Rose, we need to trend now.
Yeah.
Romance!
But even the kid who played Mason, what's his name? Cameron Monaghan?
Is he the moody one?
From Shameless, the redhead. Like, he's so much fun in the book, and he's so, like, he was delivering his lines like he was wooden. Like, his delivery was just off.
Yeah, he gets reduced to Ducky.
While we're talking about the male leads, though, I actually really like the guy that plays Christian, and part of it is because if you look at his face, you're just like, that is a face that was custom designed to star in teen vampire movies. Like, if you look at a picture of him, you'll know exactly what I mean. But I also just thought that the actor was one of the more charismatic people in the film. And so my favorite scene was the one where he gets to hang out with Zoe Deutsch, because then it's like, oh, okay, good. The two people that are actually interesting are hanging out together, but they don't have a romantic thing.
I have a nice little crush on him. Dominic Sherwood. He's fun.
Yes.
I'm watching him.
That's even like a vampire. That's even like a teen vampire name, Dominic Sherwood.
Fun fact, have you noticed that his eyes are 2 different colors, and it's absolutely fascinating? I mean, like, seriously, go look at, like, a high-res close-up picture. Like very blatantly 2 different colors. They should write that into the script.
So it'll be like 28 days later, or was it 28 weeks later? That was
I'll totally have a crossover between the two. The thing that makes me sadder about this, though, is that the large majority of critics don't like it. Nobody saw it in theaters last weekend, and it's unfortunate because the second book is pretty damn good, and it could have been much more cinematic than this one was. So much tighter. It's freaking vampire skiing. That's unfortunate that we're not going to see that.
Did you say vampire skiing? As in, like,
oh, I did. They go up to, like, a mountain resort. Like, the Strigoi, like, are, like, this crazy threat, and the only way that they could keep all the Moroi safe is by keeping them in one place. So they go to this really, like, posh ski resort, and it's kind of like summer camp, but skiing with vampires, and I kind of liked it.
Better off dead with vampires.
I just think it's sad how the Weinsteins treated this film, which was that they wouldn't let any critics review it. They like canceled all the midnight screenings, like the way that
After people had bought tickets, like
Yeah.
people turned up.
That's outrageous. But one of
That's
the producers of the movie went to one of the theaters, I think in LA, and like shook hands and greeted people, which is the nicest thing someone attached to that movie could have done.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, it's not nearly as bad of a movie as that treatment would lead you to believe. Like, it's not a great movie, but it's fun. And one of the things that I thought was the best about it was that after all these, like, really deadly serious YA adaptations we've gotten lately, it was kind of fun to just see, like, you know, people be snarky and sassy and kick ass.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like the movie nearly as much as you guys did. My review on Pop Crush, I'm kind of rough on it, but I just, like, for me, I hadn't read the book, and the whole movie to me felt like someone going, oh, wait, and let me tell you another thing that I forgot to tell you before. And it was just like you said, it was exposition overload, and it's like, realistically, I don't need to know everything about that world. I just need to know what Perri set up in the beginning. These are the 3 races, these are how they function, and go. And then from there, you can tell me things about how the powers work and stuff like that, but there's literally scenes where someone's like, so 2 years ago this happened, last year this happened. Like, they talk like that. It's just, it's shocking that a writer as talented as Waters came up with dialogue this on the nose. Like, it feels like an outline. It doesn't feel like a script, and it's really frustrating. So, like, the promise that I expected was Mean Girls and Heathers meets vampires. That sounds amazing. And I don't think the movie got there, but then the treatment by the Weinsteins was really strange, because, like, all of us were trying to get screenings to it, and we're repeatedly, like, told, like, oh, yeah, no, that's not, we don't have them set up yet, I don't know what that's about, which was really weird. And then they did cancel the midnight screenings, and then, like, they tanked their own movie, and it would not have been a hit. Like, I don't even think it would have been, like, Warm Bodies level. But, like, you're seeing online people who like the books and who enjoyed the movie for what it is are really trying to get people to see it, and, like, they're trying to start Facebook groups and stuff. But, like, Kate Erbland and I were talking about this, and she said it's like an echo chamber where, like, the only people aware of this movement are people that are a part of the movement. So it's kind of a shame, because there are fans who really wanted this movie, and I think that the Waters and the Weinsteins failed them, and there's no way there's going to be this scheme.
Their promotional campaign did it too. Like, I saw this really great trailer at New York Comic Con that I don't think ever got released, and that's what that trailer said about the movie. I am Mean Girls and Heathers meets vampires, and it had a much better pace than the garbage that we ended up seeing. Like, did you guys see on Facebook? It's really great that they did this. It's a nice thing to do for fans. They had like a mall tour type thing where they let fans like take pictures with the cast while they went up and signed things. And it's legit like the cast sitting at like a conference table, and then one person would have to stand here and they'd take a picture. It was just like some of the most awkward pictures. I'm sure those pictures are being cherished right now, so I don't want to badmouth them too much. But like even something simple like that, there were better ways to do that,
Yeah.
But that's it for Vampire Academy. It's come and it's going and it's never coming back. Angie, let's talk about Robocop.
Okay, so the other thing that has come out recently is Robocop, as you just mentioned. So, if you've seen the original, you know what it is. It's a remake of the original. Joel Kinnaman plays Alex Murphy / Robocop. There's a little bit more emphasis this time around on who Alex Murphy is and like how turning into Robocop affects him. Gary Oldman plays the scientist that turns him into Robocop, and Michael Keaton, who is always is awesome, is the evil villain. And all right, so I was expecting the worst. Like, I hated when they did a remake of Total Recall. Was it like 2 years ago? I hated it so much, and I was expecting this to be like that. And in the beginning of the movie, I was pleasantly shocked because it was actually really good. Like, it retained some of that sharp satirical bite to it. The stuff with Joel Kinnaman's character was actually really surprisingly emotional. But then, in my opinion, as the movie goes on, it just kind of devolves into like a generic action thriller, and by the end, it had turned into exactly what I had feared it would be. I mean, in the beginning, they raise all these really interesting themes about like American foreign policy and like stuff like that, and all of it just kind of falls away at the end, so that Robocop can go, battle some bad guys. I don't know. What did you guys think of the movie?
Well, I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. The only reason I went to see it, I wasn't scheduled to review it, so the only reason I went to see it was because we had talked about talking it on here. But I'm glad I did. I had a lot of fun. For one, I think the action sequences are really fantastic. I was genuinely surprised by a lot of them and engaged in them. And there's an opening action scene that's really traumatic and upsetting, and it pulls you into the world. And then I actually feel like a great deal of time was spent building an emotional story within the film, but unfortunately in the second and third acts, that's all kind of, it's like you said, it spins out, and it's like, oh, but instead let's focus on this stuff. Like, let's not talk so much about the political stuff we've set up that is interesting, where Samuel L. Jackson effectively is Glenn Beck. That's fun stuff. And there's this plot line about Alex's character having to confront that he's not exactly human anymore. Like, there's a scene where they reveal what his body is without the suit, and I won't get into details, but like, I almost cried. It's really upsetting. Like,
I actually cried.
Yeah, it's a very powerful scene, and then like they set up the idea that his enhanced robot abilities enable him to like look at surveillance footage of his son, because his family's being like harassed by the paparazzi because of everything that's been going on, and he realizes that his son's in dire need of like mental help at this point because this is just too much for his like little child brain to figure out, and like he thinks about that, but then, and I feel like this is where the script starts going like, fuck it. It's like he thinks about that, and then he's like, I'm gonna go investigate who tried to kill me to begin with, and it's like, well, wait, but you just established that a problem is your son needs help. Why are we? What? Like, it's just, so. Yeah, like halfway through the second act, it's like the movie decides it's going to be something else, and it kind of lost me there. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, and I feel like if you want to see a, pretty gonzo action movie, like it's solid.
The other thing I want to say,
I'm kind of sold, actually. I might have to circle back around and see it. I kind of want to see it for that moment that made you guys tear up, because when a movie like that has really that effect. Like in the middle of all this like nonsensical action, like I'm all for it.
And the special effects are great. I feel like we should say, because we're going to be talking about another movie in a minute, that the special effects are not so good. But the special effects in this are really good. Where like, you can't see the seams of the robot and the reality. You know what I mean? Like, I bought that he isn't like this suit is really impressive, and it doesn't look like dude in suit. Like, the enhanced technology we have now really upgrades that fantastically, and like. They gave it a depth of like, if you woke up, like if, your last moment was confusion and pain, and then you woke up and you're in this body that isn't really yours, like what would that be like? And there's a good section of the film where they really concentrate on that emotion, but it gets kind of lost in the end. And I feel like that was, it feels like it got studio noted, where it's like, yeah, let's get back to the drug dealers and the corrupt corporation and.
I know, I kind of felt like this movie would have been better if it wasn't a Robocop remake, because, as we've been saying, they set up all these really interesting themes in the beginning, but then it kind of goes back to the Robocop plotline because he has to. It's Robocop, and he has to say the catchphrases, and he has to,
says Robocop.
But one other thing I wanted to mention is that I thought Joel Kinnaman was really good in this movie, because it's not a role that's inherently interesting or has much personality to it, but he really brought a personality and charisma to it. I don't know him from The Killing, I haven't seen it, but this made me wish that he would be in more things going forward.
Yeah, it's hard because it's literally just like, here's your face, go, and it's like, he can't. I don't even know if he can physically move his neck around or something, but it feels like he's very limited in what he's allowed to emote with, and also the inhibition that his character has had his brain tampered with, so his emotions are not like ours. Like, there's a lot of obstacles in making an interesting performance, and I actually thought he really succeeded.
Yeah, I mean, I hope he lands something else soon.
Yeah, he's way better than like Sam Worthington or all these like.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, like he's not just like, oh, and here's a sort of handsome guy.
Yeah, I mean, he at first I was like, oh, okay, they just cast like a pretty boy from a TV show in this, whatever. But no, kudos to him. He really made the most of it. The cast overall was actually really good. Jay Baruchel was in it, and
Jay Baruchel steals this movie. He's like a marketing guy. He maybe has 10 lines, but every time he's on screen, like everybody's like, yay!
Yeah, Abby Cornish is in it, and she needs to start getting better work, but, she tries her best. Anyway, so I think that's about it for Robocop this week.
You want to bring us home, Kristy, with Winter's Tale?
Yeah, so now we're going to talk about Winter's Tale, which it was based on a book that, as I understand, I don't think any of us have read it, but it's apparently a very dense book full of lots of stories and emotions and theories and things, and I've heard the book is amazing. So Akiva Goldsman read this book and was like, I'm going to make a movie, and took apparently a little part of the book and decided to make a movie, and the movie he made is indecipherable. It's so bad. I'm so excited to talk about it. But I'm going to read you the IMDb plotline because it doesn't make any sense. The three of us have seen this movie, and I feel like we all agree that we're like, who wrote this plotline? Like, okay, so the plotline, according to IMDb, is a burglar falls for an heiress as she dies in his arms. When he learns that he has the gift of reincarnation, he sets out to save her.
There's no reincarnation in this movie.
There was There's a magical flying horse. There's no reincarnation that I...
There is. Yeah, there's angels and demons. Mm-hmm. There's magic crystals, maybe? I don't know if the crystals were magic.
Oh, like the things that look like bats that are like...
Yeah, the pebbles that Russell Crowe fucks with.
That Russell Crowe plays a demon / crime boss, and he has crystals that when he puts in light, they project 3D models of places, so he knows where people are. Oh god. So I saw this movie with Perri next to me, which was amazing, and I wish I had videotaped your responses because I know at one point I turned to you and you were just like this. It wasn't because the movie is scary.
A pretty solid minute where tears were gushing from my eye. I know when it was. You know when Russell Crowe has this little fit and he gets some blood on his hand and he's slaps him.
I think we can say what happens because it's been all over Twitter. Russell Crowe rips off a man's face and then uses the blood to draw a picture. And then he hands this picture, which is nonsense. It's just the back of someone's head. Literally it is whatever.
I just want to say that the words draw and picture you're being very forgiving here. He basically just takes his blood, splats some of it on a tablecloth or a napkin or something.
And then he's like, find this girl. And okay. So I'm sorry. I'm gonna backpedal a little bit. Colin Farrell plays a thief in 1916 New York. He is trying to break ties with crime boss Russell Crowe, who is also a demon. Whether or not Colin Farrell's character knows if Russell Crowe's character is a demon, no idea, because the movie can't seem to decide. Sometimes he doesn't seem aware.
I feel like he wouldn't be phased, because also when a magical horse shows up, he's just that seems about right.
Well, he says, the horse can jump really high. I'm like, that wasn't jumping. You clearly flew. What? Okay, so anyway, he meets this girl. He's breaking into a house, and he meets this beautiful redheaded girl played by the girl from Downton Abbey, and she's beautiful and breathy, and I love her, and she's whatever. So he meets her, and they have that hey, we're gonna get together moment, and their meet cute is him breaking into her home, and for some reason Russell Crowe is threatened by this. I don't know, and then he goes to talk to Satan, I don't know, whatever, I don't know. He doesn't want them to be together for reasons that I'm unclear on. Something about miracles, I don't know. And so, yeah, he's like, I know what she looks like. Face rip, blood doodle, and then he hands, this piece of tablecloth to his assistant and is like, find her. But my favorite part of the movie, because that was the only, Perri can vouch for this, I did that, hard piercing, what are you talking about type laugh. In a theater full of people that was just dead silent. Someone's helping her get into a cab, and then he looks at her and she turns around, and then he pulls up a sheet of paper that is basically a Xerox of the drawing, which doesn't make any sense. It's 1916, but he looks at it and then looks at her as if to be like, that's definitely her. And I just noticed so hard.
The plot hinges on the fact that nobody in this movie has ever met more than one redheaded person in their entire life.
Being redheaded is treated like you are the holy grail in this movie. Oh,
yeah,
she's red hair. It must be her, obviously.
My favorite part is when, because so Colin Farrell is romancing Lady Sybil from Downton Abbey, and so then he meets her family, and he's having a heart-to-heart with her dad, where the dad is what are your intentions, blah, 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 and they're chatting.
And they discuss wallets and fillets.
They discuss like when the T is
Fillets.
silent. They spend like a
'Cause that's
good
hilarious.
5 minutes being like, is it claret or claret? Is it fillet or fillet? You don't call it a wallay, and that's like a whole like chunk of the movie that I don't know why. But then toward the end,
just like,
yeah, toward the end of the conversation, Colin Farrell's just like, do you think it's possible to love someone so much that they can never die? And the dad's like, no.
Yeah. Because I said this to a widower. It's such a shitty thing to say to a widower. Because the implication is, I mean, you did
I've ever
it.
seen. I don't even know. The dad just sounds so like, this is a man who's talking about, like, I love your daughter so much that I literally think I can prevent her from dying. And not only is he like, oh, that's
because she has consumption.
I
might have forgotten that.
Yes.
She has consumption.
He has, like,
she's
the
always
dad
wearing
has
summer dresses.
The dad has
and
no
then
reaction
sleeping
to
on a
this.
roof in a tent, which every time I saw that, I had to laugh, even though there was a reason for it.
Yes. The dad's reaction to, like, the way the dad says no to that question is it like if Colin Farrell was like, oh, are we having steak for dinner? Like,
Yeah.
no.
You want to see some of my favorite parts of the movie?
Yes.
Can you see it? Am I holding it clear enough?
You're holding
Yeah.
it, but we can't read it.
Well, this is all of, like, the nonsense that I scribbled down. If you'd like to hear some of them. Oh, here's my favorite line from the movie. This is a Jennifer Connelly gem, where she just
I have
casually,
that written down too. Go ahead.
she just
Wait,
casually says,
Did we explain what happens after?
Oh.
I feel like that might be spoilers, but eventually they jump to the future. I think we can say that. Eventually
Yes.
it jumps to modern times, and he meets Jennifer Connelly, and
Well,
he is the same, because I guess reincarnation.
no,
he
because
magically
he's been
ends up
living.
he magically ends up in 2014 and he has no memory of who he is, but he's just like hanging out there, and then he meets Jennifer Connelly. He's like, "Can you help me try to find out who I am?" And that's the second half of the movie.
And
Yeah.
then she courts him by saying, I live down on 12th Street, and I've got chicken. And
Yeah,
chicken
I've
must be
got
referenced
chicken.
later on, too.
Yes,
got
he shows up.
chicken.
He's like,
I like
"I like chicken."
Yeah, and then he's like, "You're the only family with this last name on 12th Street." I'm like, "Why do you what? What?"
Yeah, it implies that he spent the entire evening going
Like,
from
looking-
every building, looking at every single buzzer, looking for someone
because
with
we
his
know
last
everybody
name.
updates those. Those are always really accurate and up to snuff.
Yes, and
Yeah,
12th Street is tiny. It's not by no means is it a long street that crosses all of Manhattan.
I actually have here, like, my notes read, "What? Question mark. The fucking redheaded girl sketch. Hot boiler fixing action, because that's a scene that happens.
Yes,
Headbutt
it is.
fighting. Like,
Mhm.
I don't.
Oh, I have
there were so
headbutt
many-
fighting.
Yeah, there were so many moments where I was literally looking to other people in the audience because I felt like a crazy person. Like, I felt like I had missed 20 minutes somewhere because the movie made so little sense. Like, it's extraordinary. And Perri pointed out, and I'll let you expand on this point, but like Perri pointed out that it's not just that the story doesn't make any sense. Like, the way it is shot is atrocious.
There's a pretty good chunk of this movie where people are talking and you're literally looking at the back of their heads. And, like, this is Akiva Goldsman's first time directing a movie. Maybe that's part of it. But, like, that's like a nonsensical shot. Any person in this world would naturally feel inclined to need to see someone's face when they're saying certain lines of dialogue, and he gives us no access for things like that.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like an artistic choice. I explained it to my husband, like, this feels like a movie of someone who's never seen a movie made, but was like, explain, like if you said to an alien, "Let me explain to you what a movie is," and then you were like, "Make one." Like, that's what this feels like. It is so completely ignorant of, like, film storytelling. Like, it does not tell you stories with pictures, and, like, a big part of the problem for me, which I focused on in my Cinema Blend review, is that this magical realism that Goldsman keeps talking about in the press, he doesn't establish it early enough. So it feels like we're constantly playing catch-up. Like, my example is Star Wars. It starts off with, here is a spaceship flying through space. Here is the reality in which I am presenting you. So your suspension of disbelief is on the same page with what is demanded of you from the filmmaker. This movie just starts off with some long-winded talk about maybe stars or people, and, like, this... I mean, that's the thing. And then it goes back and forth between, like, this story of these people at Ellis Island that doesn't make any sense to us until, I'm going to say, about an hour and a half into the movie. Maybe less, whatever. I don't know. The movie doesn't make sense. But these two people who are credited as young men and young women, so good luck with that. And then him in the modern day, but it's, like, unclear. It's this really confusing hodgepodge back and forth. Like, it needs to start with the horse flying around Manhattan so that we're like, oh, this is a movie where Pegasuses exist, where angels are a thing. Because otherwise it starts off and it's just like your typical like New York, the turn of the century crime movie where it's like, here's a guy running away from thugs. Why is there a shiny white horse here? Oh, well, jump on. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And then, like, they take off effectively flying, though he thinks he's jumping, whatever.
It's like the opposite of Vampire Academy. That goes out of its way to explain everything so it makes sense, and this just has none of that. Like, everything is just, they expect...
It takes for granted that we're on board.
I believe.
Yeah,
and, like,
I
forgot to mention the part where they plop a baby in a boat and go push and expect it to float right to Manhattan.
No, you're saying boat, but it's like a model ship. Like, it's like one of those boats that's like 3 foot long, and they're like, because the idea is that his parents, Peter Lake's parents, were rejected for heart conditions, and so they're like, but can't we leave our baby here in America? And like the Ellis Island guy's like, ain't nobody got time for this. So they steal a display boat that's, I guess, at Ellis Island, and they take it back onto the boat that's going back to Ireland, and then they lower the baby down, and it caused giggles in our audience, because you're just like, well, that baby's gonna die. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And they just, like, let it drift, I guess, to New York. Okay. But, I mean, like, that's the thing. Like, if they had established this is a world where magic is real, where, like, you know, angels and everything are real, then that would be fine. But that's, like, the first kind of magic realism image you're given. And my first thought was just, well, that's preposterous. And what makes me angry is that in the press conference that Perri and I both attended, and we will both have coverage up on this that we can put in links if people are interested, they can read about it. But Akiva Goldsman said that to him, the film is about rejecting cynicism. And I hate that that's his point on it, because I don't consider myself a cynical person at all. And this movie makes me feel cynical because it makes me be like, ugh, please. But that's because the movie's failing. That's not on me. That's his failure as a director to get me on board. I want to see a movie that believes in love. I want to see a movie where miracles are real, because that's wonderful. But that's not what this movie's like. This movie fails to get me there. And I don't like that his insistence that it's about not being cynical implies that everyone who doesn't like it is cynical. What do you guys think about that?
I get the sense that what happened with him with this is he lived in it for so long and obsessed over it for so long that he just wasn't able to pull back and view it as a movie. Like, he just lived in this thing for so many years, and it wasn't just a movie to him. It became really important because of some tragedy in his own life, and I think that just distorted his perspective, and he can't relate to how anybody else would feel about this movie. And that just makes me absolutely baffled by how he could get so many people on board to take part in this. I understand that he is a prolific writer and producer and probably has a lot of favors that he can call for, but someone in that, like, freaking Colin Farrell, Jennifer Connelly, Russell Crowe, Will Smith, someone had to say, that's not right. Like, stop doing that. Change that. Don't waste the money Warner Brothers gave you on that. What is wrong with you? At some point.
Yeah. Somebody had to have read the script and go, oh, okay, I mean, why? Like, 'cause it's just, there, you know, and one thing, and I said in my review, the only credit I can give this movie is it is trying really hard. No one in this movie showed up and just took a paycheck. Like, they are all really working to make this movie, you know, something. But, like, it's a failure of the director and the writer, because he did both. Like, he fails. Like, I put in my review that, like, this movie fails on so many levels. I don't like calling it a movie. Like, I hesitate to call it a movie.
Can we talk about it?
Spoilers.
Yes. Can we talk about spoilers?
Wrap up. Spoilers. This is your one and only spoiler alert. We are going to talk about spoilers for Winter's Tale. If you do not want to hear them, turn this off now, and we'll see you next week. Spoiler time. Let's do it. I want to talk about Will Smith.
Oh, fuck. Will Smith is the best part of this movie.
But who thought that was a good idea? He was the best part about this movie because this movie was just one big joke. Like, if this movie had been what it should have been and they plopped Will Smith down in there, like,
it is distracting.
The reason Will Smith is good in this is because, one, because he should play more characters like this, but two, because the role is absolutely ridiculous. This is freaking Lucifer, the devil with sparkly hoop earrings and a Jimi Hendrix t-shirt.
And a blazer.
Why?
What else should the devil be wearing?
I don't know. I actually really like
that's a good point.
That was actually, like, I like that because, like, while everybody else is, like, acting the whole movie. Like, it's real hard, like, ooh, you know, like, Colin Farrell is adorable, and so, like, cheers to him. Like, I'm not saying people are bad in this, but, like, Russell Crowe is doing, like, full-on acty face where he's like, I hate Peter Lake, picture, like, you know, it's a whole thing. But, like, Will Smith is actually really good in this. Like, it's actually, like, I feel like Will Smith has become this kind of facet where he's just, like, I'm charismatic, and he doesn't really have to act in movies. But in this, he actually gives a performance that is interesting, but it doesn't make any damn sense just because, I don't know, like, the devil doesn't really have an important part to play in the thing. I don't understand why he seems to live in the docks.
The other thing I don't understand is why the devil's powers only apparently extend to the 5 boroughs of Manhattan, because they're always like, oh, we need to go above Manhattan. And I was like, you mean the clouds? And they're like, no, we mean upstate, because we're safe as long as we're in upstate New York.
Yeah.
And I was like, and there's like all that matters.
And if you would think, like, you know, if the devil had any jurisdiction at all in upstate, he would send one of his other agents there, even if Russell Crowe couldn't get there. But no, they're all just like, bummer, he went to Yonkers, so, you know, now we can't do anything.
He's out of our jurisdiction.
I was like, you guys can't take the fucking, like, Metro North? Like, it's not that hard to get there.
No, they have to drive their big, expensive cars all the way out there just so they
can
sit on the ice and fall through.
Yes, they drive over an ice lake. The other thing is that, so in the end, you find out that basically what happened was...
The end is insulting.
Beverly, so apparently every human gets a miracle that they can perform. And Beverly's is that she gets Colin Farrell to love her so much that he is incapable of dying, right? And then his is that, and so that's miracle number 1. And then we find out that, like, his whole miracle is that he can save this dying kid from cancer that he met, like, 5 minutes ago. And it's just like, that seems like a really convoluted way for the side of good to solve what seems like it should be. Why don't you just make the kid's miracle that she gets over cancer? I don't know. It was just like, and it was also just like, oh, so we spent all of this story was leading up to it saving a little girl that we have seen
maybe 10 minutes of screen time.
For like 10 minutes.
She's unconscious.
The movie says the biggest problem, like, it actually states the issue with that whole thing.
Perri laughed out loud at this point in the voiceover.
Why would, now I can't read my notes, why would so many things conspire to save one girl's life? And I think during that screening I audibly said, great question! And like,
no, you did. You were like, it just exploded out of you,
After, like, a 2-hour movie, you're going to say that. And you know what? That's a great question because it's a question you never answer. And that is why this movie is just so moronic.
Exactly. That's your thesis statement. You need to figure that shit out before you shoot. Like, it just, it's so frustrating, this movie. Like, I mean,
you know, it's frustrating, but I'm having an absolute blast tearing this apart. I probably will say this is going to be on my worst of the year list, but normally my worst of the year list is populated with movies that are so bad that they make me mad. This is kind of like, it's so bad that I'm having fun with it.
That's certainly true. I did enjoy watching the movie because it's just such a train wreck. But, like, I feel like that's what people like to think critics feel like, that we like ripping movies apart, and I don't. I would much prefer to have just been on board with this movie. I would much prefer to just be, like, watching The Cutting Edge and crying my heart out. But, like, this movie, I think I'm probably the only one that referenced The Cutting Edge in a review of this anyway. But, like, Winter's Tale is just so stupendously bad that, like, it is fun to watch with a group of people and just be like, what is happening? I keep telling other critics that were like, I mean, we begged Angie to go see it so we could talk about it, and then I was telling other critics, they're like, I heard it's bad, why would I go see it? And I was like, because people are going to keep talking about how bad this movie is. Like, it's that bad.
I walked out of the movie and I was just like, I have about 400 questions. And they're just, some of them are really small, like, what the fuck is up with his haircut that kind of just comes and goes?
That's my favorite note. I literally wrote, where is it? It says, what with that fucking hair? With, like, multiple question marks following it. His hair grows out, and then he's got to go and cut that same damn haircut back.
Yeah,
it drove me off my mind.
And that's how we know that he remembers he's Peter Lake, because acting can't do that, I guess.
And then why does a major New York City newspaper have a 107-year-old editor?
Yes.
I
don't know why it's set in the modern day. They could have made it set in, like, the 80s and 90s, and it would have been fine.
It was published in the 80s, and if you think about it, it's like, okay, you know, like,
that's
had she been,
less
like,
ridiculous.
70
they also
or 80
said that during the press conference, like, it was just like, oh, yeah, she's, like, over 100.
Oh, yeah, because the New York Times would never fire someone for being 102. That would never happen. What? Like, That's insane. It's insane. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like Eva Marie Saint in this, and she was the best part of the press conference because she is crushing on Colin Farrell so hard.
But like for real though, it wasn't like a
she's
joke.
amazing.
Like, she referenced that sex scene like 4 times.
Yeah, she was like, "I wish I were Jessica Vincennes." Like she didn't care. I love it because she's at that point where she's like, "Screw it, I'm the old lady. I can say whatever I want. I love her." And someone else called her Eva, and she's like, "It's Eva Marie." Yeah.
That sex scene was absurd.
She said all that stuff, and I thought the sex scene sucked.
I thought the sex scene was sweet, but there's weird close-ups of his back, like not his backside.
That's a perfect example of the problem with the shot selection. Yeah. That's a scene where you need access to people's face and not the back.
I don't need to see like nudity. Just give me some skin that's like can like suggest sex. Like just his naked back is not. It
never actually looked like they were having sex. It looked like they were just laying in bed, like panting heavily, and that was like, and then giggling, and that was like what they think sex looks like. Which, to be fair, this is a world where white winged horses appear out of nowhere and people just accept it.
Maybe people don't hump in this world.
I don't know.
That actually, I'm gonna bring this up really quickly. That actually reminds me, in Endless Love, another remake that comes out tomorrow or this week. There's a sex scene in there that is clearly supposed to be PG-13, so I laughed really hard. I've been acting it out with people to make them uncomfortable. Where I basically stand really close to someone and then just stare at them, because that is what that scene looks like, except that it's horizontal. Like, they're basically just on top of each other, but because of PG-13, they can't move.
I felt like the Winter's Tale one was kind of like that.
Yeah, it's just like,
people like move during sex. It's not like they just kind of like lay there for 10 minutes and they're like, well, that's over.
Right? Like, I watched this and I'm like, I'm doing sex wrong, I guess. I guess it's just like, so hi. I did it I did that. I stood right in front of Jenny Miller and then I said, now just imagine that I'm inside you, which was weird and I probably shouldn't have. She felt uncomfortable. But like, yeah, it's that really awkward where like we know what sex looks like, so you don't have to get like super graphic with it, but like motion helps. Even just a close up of a mouth and a gasp or something. But like, Winter's Tale and Endless Love both have these really dull sex scenes, and it's just like, what's the point? If you're gonna give me like a really bland sex scene, can we just show the sun coming up or something? I don't care.
Can they just do what they did in like Star Wars Episode 2, where they just like see them staring intensely at each other and then it just pans to the fireplace?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That was fun.
Subtle.
All right. On that note, we are way over. So any last words before we leave Winter's Tale behind?
I think if you enjoy seeing movies that are bad, you should see Winter's Tale.
I don't think it's worth seeing, even if you enjoy.
Maybe not in theaters. I don't necessarily know that it's worth that, but make it a point to watch this with some friends.
Watch it with other people. It's no fun if you're watching it by yourself.
I'd agree. Communal experience with a whole bunch of alcohol, and you can have a lot of fun with this thing.
Agreed. Yeah.
How about some Prosecco?
Yeah.
So that is all the time we've got for this week. But if you liked what you see here, follow along. You can catch us at popcornprosecco.com, on Twitter at Popcorn Prosecco, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel, again, Popcorn Prosecco. Angie, where can people find you on the web?
You can find me on Twitter at AJHAN, and you can also find my work on /film.
Kristy?
I'm on Twitter at Kristy Puchko. That's KRISTYPUCHKO, and I'm writing right now for Cinema Blend and Pop Crush.
You can get me on Twitter, Nemiroff, and also all over the web, Shocky.com, Movies.com, ScreenRant.com, Collider.com, ComingSoon.net. I'm always nervous I'm going to forget someone and make them feel bad. We got this covered. This show is in its early stages, so if you've got any questions, suggestions, compliments, comments, anything at all, please feel free to put them in the comment section of this post. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.